Let's have it.
Hey, what's happening? What's happening? So I'm here. It's me. It's Raul LaBrush. That's Raul, like growl, not Raul, not Labrecki. It's Raul LaBrush. I'm the host here of Coming Together. Frame of reference coming together. It's, frame of reference. We're trying to change your frame of reference, but we're also trying to come together here with this show. And my good friend, my brother in Christ, and my brother in so many ways as we've gotten to know each other, is sitting across the screen from me. And you fine young man, what is your name again?
Antowan Hallmon Sr.
That's right. Antoine, where are you? What's your deal? What's your background that people need to know about you from the get-go here?
Well, of course, I'm the senior pastor of FaithWorks Ministries, a Christian non-denominational Bible teaching church. I like to say that my wife and I, we like to say that we're those shepherds that smell like sheep. We are boots on the ground ministry.
Shepherds that smell like sheep. I like.
Yeah, we roll up our sleeves and get our hands dirty and love on people right where they are.
I don't know if you know this, but sheep don't smell so good. I don't know.
No, they don't.
So, especially when you get up close and personal, right? So
and we love them where they are. And then of course participating in DEI experiences and just trying to bring understanding. That's what we're about. Love and understanding.
DEI, right. Die by DEI. That was one of our phrases last week, I think. So
that was from what's his name? The gentleman that owns SpaceX and Tesla.
Oh, Elon Musk.
Yeah. Those were his words. Yeah.
That's a whole nother can of worms, right? So, and folks, we get together once a week. We try whenever possible to just kind of talk about the experiences that we have from the different races that we talk about in America, and racism. When you're talking about that, you're talking about plain old white folk like me. I don't know if they're plain anything, but as diverse as we all are, and then people of color. And that phrase, even I know, can be an issue with some folks. People of color. What am I supposed to say now? Is it okay to blah blah blah? But so to let you know, we do not have a bevy of producers and writers that are putting all this together. We're talking off the top of our heads, in my case mostly from the backside of my body. This is not anything other than a conversation. And if you want to partake and get into the conversation with us, please do. But we just came up with a topic moments ago, and it was my idea, good or bad, to talk about the issue of anger management. Because when you talk about racism, it strikes me that it gets pretty angry pretty quickly. I wonder about things personally, guys, like if what was happening, and folks listening, you may think that it's all blown out of proportion or whatever, that, I don't get all of this. Poor me and affirmative action and DEI, man, it's just nobody gives me a break. Right there, you can see the seeds of the anger starting, right? But the reality is, I can guarantee folks that are out there, white folks that are out there, if we dealt with the kinds of things that my black brothers in this country deal with on a day in, day out basis, from the time they are kids, little kids, and they become aware of the fact that, so my skin color is different, but I get treated differently than these other kids whose skin color is different from mine. Why is that? And then their moms and dads sit them down and say, this is why. And they start to see that. I guarantee you, if we were dealing with that, we would be gunned up so quickly and just out. I cannot imagine the amount of violence and anger and whatever there would be.
People are getting gunned up now.
Yeah. I mean, just because it isn't fair. How dare you treat me? So not only would we do that if the shoes were reversed, but the shoes aren't reversed, and we're still mad because of this, stuff going on now that's talked about over and over again of trying to maintain the status quo that, whites are now the persecuted, entity in this country. We have this whole a movement of, people trying to protect the white way of living, the white, agenda, the culture of America, the origins of America. And I just kind of chuckle a little bit when I hear those kinds of arguments and think, I think there were some people here before we even came. And as I remember it, we didn't stop and say, oh, hey, we're just, can we live side by side with you guys? Are you good with that? Because we understand this is your country. You've been here before. We'd like, can you, help us kind of get acclimated to the whole thing? No, we said, you guys don't have guns. We're shooting you. So, it's, I mean, we have to recognize, and you can say, I didn't do anything with it. I wasn't a part of that, but that is our history. That is, and people are maybe trying to change it. There was a time when, textbooks I read when I was a kid, they were pretty open about it. It was talked about it as being, we were slaughtering, entire tribes, entire nations, but that's because they were savages and they were killing our people. And, they were doing things that they deserved to die. They were just, they didn't have any kind of a lifestyle. They didn't have technology like we had. Heck, they couldn't even cut down logs. You'd think, I don't get it. So we can't even admit that the fact that our anger is driving us to do totally irrational, totally biased, totally uninformed things. And we just, the more you try to say, well, can I tell you some of what really happened? Can I tell you some of the background really to slavery? Have you really thought about it? You can't go there with a lot of folks because they're so angry about what they feel threatened about. And I think that's maybe that's what it comes down for me. It's all fear-based anger. I'm threatened, I'm going to attack. Right.
And that's a great point there, Raul, because just like what you were just talking about with the Native Americans being here first, and of course it's like, say, hey, if you don't have a gun, I'm gonna shoot you, right? So what happened was they labeled them savages and all these different kind of things. When you say marginalize a people and then you antagonize them and then you set a stigma, a law or whatever against them, and then you execute the law, and then when they act out, yes, that's your reason to justify your pre-existent behavior or your pre-existent thought. You're looking for a reason to execute what you already have in your heart. Mm-hmm. And we starting to see that today, of course, people feel like, hey, there's this white replacement theory thing, and people are really angry about that. And it's like, that's not the case. It's just this is just the way things are going, that this is just the way it is. And it's like, but it's like, the more you try to fight against a thing, the worse it's going to get for you. And it's almost like, I hate to say this, but it's just like, yes. And the stats show within the next 20, 30 years, the country may be predominantly Hispanic. Mm-hmm. And it's like, what do you do about that? It's like you either start to adjust and adapt. But then it's like, well, so what are you going to do? It was like I heard it said that, they're going to build camps and just start deporting people and all these different kind of things. It's like, no. And again, that's when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, it's like we can learn so much from different cultures, but we're not willing to learn because a lot of times we feel that our way is the only way. Our way is the right way. And that's where we are. And just like when we're talking about the anger part of things, it's just everybody's angry. Everybody's angry. It's like we feel like we're losing the country. And then it's like we feel like we're not being heard. And it's like the country was stolen from us. And it's like it's all these different. Everybody has a own. How if you go to different churches, right, and everybody's preaching the Bible, every race, color, or creed will make themselves Israel. Well, we're Israel. We're the persecuted. But to understand this, just like in every form of the Bible, Israel always the one who sinned first, right? And then judgment was on them. So it's like, it's like we all want to say that we are the persecuted. We are, but it's like at this point we're past. It's like the history has to be acknowledged. History has to be acknowledged in order for us to grow. Change. What did Luke? Remember we said this last week. Luke Fickell, the new Badger football coach. One of his favorite quotes of mine is, "Hey, change is inevitable. Growth is optional." in this change, in this season, in this time? Are you going to grow? Are you going to let your heart expand? Because again, at the end of the day, all we're talking is about loving people. I mean, and we're talking about when we say being Black in America and the anger issue. Since 1964, since civil rights legislation started being passed, there has been systems to circumvent it or strike it down ever since then. And then now we see in 2012, 2013, actual parts of the Civil Rights Act has actually been extracted or cast down, allowing for gerrymandering and all these different kind of things from state to state to happen. And it's like there's communities and counties and cities of minority people that don't have a voice because of how things have been drawn up in their state. Is that not a reason to be angry?
Right.
Is that a reason to be angry?
Well, what about sundown towns, right? I mean, do people out there, I would challenge folks that are white listeners. Do you know about sundown towns? Do you know that not too long ago in America, there were towns that were either self-identified. You would drive into the town and there would be we are a sundown town, proudly sundown town. And there were others that were just known throughout the Black community. It's a sundown town. And that basically meant if you're Black, a person of color, you better be the heck out of that town by the time sundown hits, or, whatever happened to you happened to you. And
well, we kind of learned that present day in Alabama. My wife and I, we were driving from Baraboo to Destin, Florida, and we drove through Alabama. And we stopped for gas and just to use the restroom and things like that. And right away, the young white lady in the store, she was like, "Y'all not from around here." And it's like, nope. And so we got in the car and it's like, all right, we drove straight till we got to the Florida limits there.
Yeah.
But right away, she was like, "Y'all not from around here."
Yeah.
And I guess she was telling me that, she told us what we need to hear. And
right.
And so thank God it was earlier in the day, because what we tend to do is we'll start driving at like 11 p.m. and drive into the light versus starting at a later time and driving into the night. So, but
right,
yeah, that sundown town thing, that is still present day, I believe. But also, just acknowledging, we were talking about anger issues or anger management. We have to bite our tongues we talk about the Greenwoods, right? Black women, because again, when we talk about racism, of course, like part of the reason that Blacks left the South, yes, it was to seek opportunity, but the primary reason because, hey, I didn't want to die. Black people had to leave their land that they owned. They had to leave it in order to live. And then it's like, when you think about those types of things that had to happen, then you look at a place like Greenwood. They say, you know what? Okay, y'all going to treat us this way. Y'all behaving this way. We're going to go and create our own economy. And then what happens? People get upset that you've done it without them. They're going to come and crush what you made. Or even like in Rosewood, you stand up to the fact that, hey, there's history there. A whole town was wiped out.
Yeah.
Because of the anger of a white person. And then it's like, again, when you want to just when you say, I want history to be acknowledged, that way we can learn from it and grow from it, because history is trying to repeat itself now. History, because like when you're starting to hear, you're hearing elected officials talk about civil war. Mm-hmm. And of course, and now, and you look at the state of Texas, they're trying to agitate us into something where, they're trying to get the states to rise up against the federal government, talking about send your reserves down here to the border.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, if it wasn't it not the current governor of Texas and his party fighting for border reform?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But now that it's on the table, you don't want to do it.
Mm-hmm. So
what does that tell us? A lot of the things that they argue and fight about is not even for the sake of us. It's for the sake of self-preservation, to preserve their powers in their seat. But also, again, it's just like it's exclusion. Mm-hmm. There's those people even Ronald Reagan, he was like, hey, those exiled, those people that are seeking asylum, bring them. But, today there's a whole different mindset. And it's like, let's build some camps, or let's just exclude people. Let's take away their rights. And yeah, of course, as from a black male perspective, there's a lot to be angry about. But again, but by God, I have to look through a different lens.
Right. Well, what does anger ever solve? I mean, when you look at world history, okay, look at World War II. Okay, what happens in World War II? You have a war that was fought in the early part of the 20th century, World War I, in which, rightly or wrongly, the forces that were at work there, one event, the shooting of an archduke and his wife, sparks a whole bunch of stuff. But there could be no spark if there wasn't gas there in the first place. There would be no fire to happen if there wasn't gas there in the first place. So you actually can trace that back into the 19th century to see all of the animosity, all the vitriol that had been built over time. So then you have all these allegiances that pour in with one another. So one country gets attacked, then another country that has an alliance with them has to attack, and it just built into this huge conflagration of a world war. So we get done with that, and, Germany was perceived as the instigator of the whole thing, and, rightly so. They were some of the first to jump on the bandwagon and say this will end, but they had an agenda from the get-go that they wanted more land back, that they thought was, had been theirs, hundreds of years ago or whatever, during the Prussian Wars and the like. And you look at that and think, okay, so they got through that, they were punished. And there were leaders in America and other places that said, guys, if we do this kind of a treaty with them, we're just basically building a bit different fire. It's going to come eventually. You can't ask for these kinds of reparations. You can't eviscerate an economy like we're asking them to be eviscerated and get things to be better. So what happens? You get a little guy that was a corporal in the government that had a particular talent for getting people riled up and feeding that anger, getting that whole sense of how dare the world do this to us? See, we were right to fight that war in the first place. We are Germans. We are Aryans. We are the superior race, and they are treating us like this. So they start breaking every rule in the treaty book, everything that they agreed to not do during the Treaty of Versailles. They just broke it, and nobody said anything. Oh, you can't be doing this. Well, we're going to do it anyways. So,
is that not happening in present day?
Yeah. I mean, it was all based on anger. And look what happens. It finally got to the point where he took so much of the surrounding countries. He was enough of a threat that that time he took France, which, in World War I, France had, been able to keep them out of their borders. Well, they lost the whole country in World War II for a period of time. So it got worse than World War I. Big surprise. That was predicted by people that actually looked at the trend and what they were doing to people, and then how did that help? How did that benefit the world? The U.S. came into one of the things we did absolutely right was through things like, the doctrines that were set up both in Japan and Germany were set to rebuild. Right? They didn't try to break it down more. They rebuilt. They figured out ways to take us beyond what had happened. And that worked pretty well for a good long time until we got to the point where, we're bored. I don't know what the heck happens that we get as a, civilization. Do we just get bored with things going well? I don't know, because all of a sudden we start finding ourselves in a situation where you make a lot of money by making missiles and planes and all those good things. So, we got to use them. And these guys over here, they're kind of pissing us off. So let's use them there. And then we're going to need more, right? So that's going to be a good thing. I say all of that to just get the framework for people to understand that our anger is being fueled. Our anger is being fueled by people that have a different agenda than getting along with one another. And
that is a key point there when you said a different agenda, because remember, like what you just everything what you just gave us is starting to be some of the same things that what Germany was saying then is being repeated and actually spoken out right now. Mm-hmm. Referring to people as excrement, vermin, whatever you want to call it, is just like, but we're in that same situation now where people say, you know what, I'm better than you, I deserve better, I sit on this seat And that's where I believe that, there's a strong call for humility, of course, when we talk about humility, it's not, looking, it's just really, can you give of yourself? Can you not just look at yourself, but look at, the needs of others as well? And that's what it's about. If we can get to a point of humility in this country, because humility is leaving. And I think I used this analogy before, and it's like almost where I had this vision at one point where it's like the globe, and it's almost like God's hand is slowly coming off the globe. And as his hand slowly comes off the globe, more and more things are happening. And that's where it's like we as prayer warriors, it's like, Lord, please don't leave us like this. But at the same time, it's like, as we try to do things the right way, as we pray, as we try to educate, as we try to inform, like on this platform that we're on now, people get upset at that fact. Yeah. And that's from a black male's perspective, it can be angering. It's like we all want the same thing. We want a decent living. We want to live good. We want to provide and protect our family. We all want a little patch of green grass that we got our kids and grands can hang out on and all this and that. And we all want the same thing. But there is a group of people with a different agenda that feel like, okay, you don't deserve that. And it's like, there's another that, and within that other group, there's like, you know what? I want more. I am one man, but I need to own a whole state. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's where we are. And it's like the humility part of this thing is starting to leave. And that's I don't like to use the word scarier, but it's like, it's very concerning the behavior of men today. Yeah. I'm talking about every race. Right. The behavior of people today. It's like there's no the facades have come off, Yeah. There's no more. And now I'm a person that can appreciate the bare knuckle honest truth. I'm one of those that can appreciate that. But at the same time, it's like, wow, where does that heart come from? Right. Why do you even have that heart in the first place? Right. And so that's the concerning part, the hearts of people now.
Well, in some ways, you have to think of it, at least I do, as kind of a good thing, because you can't cure an illness until you can see the root causes of it. I talked with a guy the other day who's a homeopathic, style medical doctor, and he talks about the issue that he has with pharmaceutical companies is they're always treating the symptoms to mitigate the symptoms so that people feel better. But the reality is they never look at the underlying cause. So by not dealing with the cause, the symptoms are just going to stay there. All you're going to be able to do is mask the symptoms. So the cause right now, we are finding out the causes of this is a deeply rooted hatred of, people that are different than me. There's a deeply rooted hatred about perceived iniquity. Right. And that I hear argument from friends of mine that are, regularly saying like, nobody ever gave me a break. Nobody ever did anything for me. And it's like, well, wait a minute. Let's look at that. When have you ever had issues where somebody let you slide with something, or, you ended up getting a favor because you're a good baseball player, or you had whatever? I mean, if we stop and think for a second about our lives, I think everybody has had some breaks when they deserve them, when they worked for them. I have yet to see someone who really works hard, not attaining significant goals, but there's this perception that you can do that and not, as a white person, and not just have it handed to you. Which is, that's, I think, one of the things that gets fed upon with the whole, DEI thing is that they feel like you're handing things to these people that no one hands anything to me. It's like, just stop and think about that for a second. Really, who do you know that is having things just handed to them, or just being given an opportunity that they would not have otherwise? I think of my own experience. I went to college because my dad at that point had retired, and I looked at it and thought, there's no way that I'm going to be able to, afford college. But at that point, Social Security had a program where if your children went to school, there was a benefit that could be paid to them for going to school. So I forget, it was $200-300 a month or whatnot that I got as Social Security, but it was enough in that day and age to be able to make things happen in terms of having enough money for, at least my room and board kinds of jazz. But then I got scholarships. Those weren't given to me. I worked for those. And there are plenty of people that do work and deserve those. They deserve financial aid packages. I was also able to get some loans that I then paid back after I was done with school. I was able to find jobs that enabled me to have enough money to pay that back. I would be hard pressed to say that multiple things within that scenario didn't happen because I was white. I would be really hard pressed to not look at that and say that somebody that was in the decision making thing that was, this white kid from South Side of Milwaukee, he's worked hard. Yeah, we're going to give him this grant, or we're going to let him have this, or whatever. So how is that different, folks? How is that different from having a program where people of color, people that come from much worse backgrounds than I was in, backgrounds where there is no more Social Security program that does what mine did. There are people that are looking at where these kids are coming from in terms of the areas of geographical locations and saying, it's a pretty risky situation there if they don't pay their bills. There is stuff going on there where if a kid is wanting to get out, and if you don't think kids want to get out of that situation, you are really smoking dope. Okay, because the reality is that the reason that you see so many black athletes that have worked their bajiminies off to become stellar athletes, because that's one of the few vectors that they can get out. Entertainers, rap singers. I mean, there's so many kids that are going to be the next greatest rap singer because they know that that's a viable way of getting the heck out. So why would you not want to provide other avenues for people like that? And fine, kids, underprivileged kids ought to have the same damn thing. I don't care whether or not they're white or black or yellow or purple polka dot. Doesn't matter to me. People that don't have ought to have opportunities to become people that have. That's what you're saying with a, green chunk of green grass or whatever. You have to have an opportunity. And if you're the person that gets that opportunity, you don't take advantage of that opportunity. Okay. At that point, I'm like, well, duh, you gave an opportunity and you had an opportunity to take it and you didn't. So that's your fault, dude. But you can't do that if you don't even have the opportunity. So,
and that's exactly. And of course, D.L. Hughley said it best. It's like, say a white person that's not doing bad, that's not doing good in this country, didn't take advantage of his whiteness. But it's like, again, but it's also, it's like, like with these programs that are greatly needed, and people got to understand history to even understand why the program is needed. Of course, like again, with anything that is designed to give a small leg up to a minority, or when we say minority, a person of color. Because like when we start talking about affirmative action, right? Of course, going back, history, the reason for these programs, because remember, it's like this 400 plus year electric fence around the black man and making some money. Even in the antebellum, he could not earn a living. He had to trade. He's like, hey, I'm a blacksmith. I can build wagons. You give me this for food instead of it's like we were forbidden to trade. And that's something that people got to go look at the antebellum and really realize. And then, of course, again, Homestead Act, all these different things that deliberately put people at a disadvantage. Now here we are, present day, just simply saying, hey, allow some programs to add equity, equality to life. So, because again, people are like, well, I work for mine, and it's like, you got to work for yours. Yes, but you are already put at an advantage since then, and that's where, because like, I'm not going to, like you say, you worked your way up. A lot of black people have done the same. But historically speaking, these programs are needed because, again, people are born into poverty after poverty after poverty after poverty. You drive through Mississippi, some people don't even know. I jokingly say this, that some of them don't even know that slavery is over. But it's like, because the way the town looks and way it is down there, you could not tell that we're living in 2020. When I was down there last 2022, you couldn't even tell it was 2022. But these programs that are needed now, it's like, okay, it's like this thing of reverse discrimination. People are starting to shout out now, where it's like, okay, that's discriminating against me. Because like that on the Supreme Court, that one women's group that was trying to throw a leg up to minority business women, and that conservative law group is fighting against it, saying, hey, that's discrimination. And then like diversity, equity, and inclusion, people are just screaming against that. Even affirmative action in itself, it's almost like it sounded good initially, but then you had and I'm just going to say this, but like you had homosexual white men, and then you had white women saying that, hey, we are a minority. And even now, as a outreach ministry, when we go to apply for a grant, of course, the grant is going to the other minority, which is hey, they have their own struggles. The LGBT, they have their battles too. But it's like like I was saying at the very beginning of this, everything that was designed to bring equality or equity or voting rights, etc. There's been a continuous battle to circumvent it, or to, because it's like to fight against it. And so here we are today, it just everything that is to bring equity, inclusion, to bring a leg up is being demonized.
Yeah. Yeah. And the deal for me, where the rubber meets the road, is when we allow anyone to be persecuted, when an injustice occurs to one individual, justice is not served to any individual. When you have, or to the greater good. So if we think about destroying things like DEI, if we think about destroying things like equal opportunity, if we think about destroying all of these things that have been designed to help people be better, anything. I don't care who it's for. I don't care if they want to make it for my dog. If it makes my dog better, why would I not want to support that for dogs everywhere? Why would I not want to support things that are for the good of people? They're good for people. Instead, we're continually steered. We're like cattle in the cattle chute, being stirred to where the electric prod is, not realizing that electric prod, the next thing after that is a knife that slits our neck. And the thing that happens after that is we get carved up into pieces and served on people's plates. Okay? We're that, folks. When we decide that, I'm just going to take this whole thing, black people bad, DEI bad, they're getting something I don't get, bad. We're in this together. Edward James Olmos, years ago, I love this. I was at a sci-fi convention because I'm a geek. I go to sci-fi conventions, right? Edward James Olmos, who, if you're doing anything about shows like Battlestar Galactica, but Edward James Olmos has been in a career usually playing like rough Latinx guys. He was in Blade Runner.
That American Me movie, right?
Yeah, well, he was in Blade Runner, right? He's the guy that made all the little origami things that pissed people off because he just sat there and, did these things to taunt people because he could just jab them, whatnot. He played Commander Adama or General Adama in Battlestar Galactica. So that's why it's like, oh man, it'd be great to see him. So he comes out, this very, weathered, seasoned actor from the business. And he got asked about racism and how did he feel about racism? How had that changed in the industry? And he said, racism, I don't even want to talk about racism as racism because it makes no sense to me. If you want to talk about races, we are all the same race. We are different as a race from insects. We are different as a race from dogs or whatever. But the human race, there is no race of black people or white people or whatnot. We have to realize that we are all one race. We are the human race. And that was, simplistic in one respect, but I think he was onto something of, the battle needs to be not between blacks and whites and, Latinxes. The battle needs to be between the haves and the have-nots, the forces that would have us do something to otherize. And now it's being, white Republicans versus, liberal Democrats who are also white, but they're libs, libertards, or maggites, depending on which side of the whole thing, right? Or maggots, I think is what they're actually pronounced, maggots and libertards. I'm like, who comes up with these names? Just because they're designed to otherize everyone. If I can think of you as a maggot instead of as a person that chooses to, vote for conservative kinds of things like balancing the budget or whatever, which were, justifiable planks, of the Republican Party for many, many years and supposedly still are, or libertards who are, you're a libertard, man, instead of seeing them as a person that chooses to vote for things that are progressive in a nature or, try to do things to be inclusive, try to move the needle to the left or to the right. I mean, so we're doing it now there. And I think that's even giving more rise to the idea of, well, now I can really light the fire on these black people and their DEI nonsense and their equal opportunity stuff that really ticks me off. It's between haves and have-nots. It's between haves and have-nots. It's between haves and have-nots. That is the battle. That is the battle, period. And if we can't get behind the idea that learn as much as you can, look at the systemic roots of haves using have-nots to fight between themselves so the haves get more. Period.
And that is if that's not a chess in itself, right? Just have the pawns fight amongst themselves and knock each other off, and then of course the king or queen sweeps through and wins the game. Yeah. And that's what we talked about this before, where it's like people are allowing themselves to be used as pawns. Of course, again, at the end of the day, when the rubber meets the road, if the hierarchy, the Trumps of the world, they look at everybody as beneath them. I don't care what color you are. It's like if you ain't in that class, you ain't sitting at that table, you are beneath them. And and of course, right now it's like as we are basically we're talking about now almost the 60th year anniversary of the March on Washington, right?
Yeah.
What has changed? There has been growth, but that we're watching that before our very eyes. We're watching that growth try to be not only stunted, but it's basically just being chopped off, being taken away.
Right. Well, and we played into it. We talk about gerrymandering multiple times, but gerrymandering has been played by both sides of the plate. Democrats were just as guilty of gerrymandering as Republicans. They played into that same game. So, and rather than somebody stopping at some place and saying, no, I'm not playing that game anymore. We're going to do what's right. We're going to do what's just. We're going to do what is humanly the best thing for all human beings. And the rest of this nonsense has got to be, we got to take a fire hose to it and put it out. It's just crazy.
And I totally agree. And if we can get everybody on one accord with one heart like that, that'll be something else, But right now, where we stand, we see that, hey, there's a small group of people that want to burn this whole thing down. If they can't have their way, let it not be anyway. Right. And that's kind of a sad thing. Again, going back to your point of the have and have nots, is if I can't have my way, I'm going to burn it to the ground. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, when they say burn it to the ground, they're going to put fuel that's already on a small little fire in these different group patches of people to have them go and burn it down. They're not going to go burn it down themselves. Right. They're going to go and agitate a group of people to initiate something that is going to be very hard for us to come back from. Right. And that's the concerning part. Because again, at the end of the day, when we're talking about these politics or whatever the case may be, it comes down to race, power, and money. It really, that's just how I see it. It comes down to race, power, and money. And I don't know if you can put it in whatever order you want to put it in, but it's just one group of people want the power. They use that power to get the money. And then, of course, they want all the money to come to themselves and just minimize and marginalize everything else. Yeah. And that's the way you kind of see it. And that's where, coming up, in the months to come, as a part of a organization I was sharing with you that we're trying to do, we're going to be talking about political, basic education in politics. And what we mean by that is we want people to learn and understand the duties and responsibilities of the executive branch, the duties and responsibilities of the legislative and the judicial, et cetera, and understand the duties and responsibilities of each branch of government. And when we can get people to learn that for themselves, when they start to hear, oh, we can't get this done because of them, or we can't have this because of that, you'll know the basic framework of how things work. And you say, hey, why can't we work together to get this thing done? For it, it's common sense for us to have more just a better living in this United States. Right. But why are we fighting against each other and making deals? Why do we have to make a deal within a deal to get something passed that's going to actually, edify the people? But again, just that simple education will eliminate a lot of lies, I believe. If we can just get people to learn the basics of politics, the duties and responsibilities of executive, legislative, and judicial branches, I think that will in itself will eliminate a small portion of misunderstandings and misconceptions.
Yeah. I keep coming back to this whole idea of our election year. It strikes me as a no-win scenario. Not only, and I hate no-wins. I'm a Star Trek guy. It's a Kobayashi Maru year for elections. And I wish I was Captain Kirk and could reprogram things so that I could win the game. But the reality of the situation we're in right now, not only do we have two political parties that are so diametrically opposed that they can't even talk to one another without calling each other names. So, and yet, do you hear from either side what they want to do, what they're going to do to make things better? No, you just hear the attack on the other side for what they're not doing, what the threat is that they are. So my question in all that, especially when you consider the fact that there's a considerable faction of people that believe the 2020 election was stolen, that it's because of the corrupt government and the corrupt politicians and the secret cabals or whatever that stole that election. So my question to you, if you believe that or you know people that do, I want to know the answer to this one question. If you believe that the former administration could not correct that problem so that they would win, then why do you believe that 4 years later that this is going to be any better? Because if it was truly stolen, this year's going to be a bigger steal. Okay. I mean, you have to accept the logic of that. There's no reason to believe that somehow the corrupt forces that made it a steal last time are going to make it better. That's like the boy who cried wolf too many times, right? You keep on crying that, this happened. Well, eventually people just don't respond anymore and you get eaten by the wolf. So, and the wolf in this case is the violence of a civil war. And I'll just challenge you right now. If you really believe that it was stolen, what are you waiting for, right? What are you waiting for? Gun up. Come on, gun up, get it done.
But that's almost basically what they want to do anyway.
Right, because that's why it's a no-win, no matter which way it goes. If one side wins, it's going to be they were stolen, and if the other side wins, they're all dead. Right? I mean, those people that stole it in 20, we're coming after you. I love President Trump interviewing with, Sean Hannity. I think he said, are you going to be, he gets asked, are you going to be a dictator? No, I'm not going to be a dictator except on day one. Except, look it up. I didn't on day one. And I said, so you're going to be a dictator. And now we find out that if you're the president, you actually can assassinate people, according to his legal team. That should be just fine because you can assassinate your opponents. And because you're president, you have to be able to do whatever you need to do. Right. All right. So either way, seems to be whether he wins or doesn't win, whether, whichever side things go on, we seem to be moving towards an inevitable conclusion there. So the only solution out, folks, is to stop and think about it now and come up with some rational responses to it that will help to calm things. Because we can't seem to concentrate or, rely upon our political leaders to do that. It's going to have to come from those of us that still are looking at it, trying to be as objective as possible to say hate is wrong, violence is wrong. Hating people because of the color of their skin makes no sense whatsoever. We are all in this together. We are all human beings. We are all human beings. And it is wrong for us to behave this way instead of listening to our better angels and saying, how can we all be better? And if one of us gets better because of whatever opportunities, that's good for everybody.
And this is where, again, like we kind of say this, and I keep saying it just in a different way. People are not gonna realize until they're in the same boat. You're acting a certain way, you're behaving, you're exhibiting all this hate. But if Trump is able to act like a dictator and do what he wants to do, poor white people are going to really see really fast that they're in the same boat as everyone else. And again, like you said, I like how you say it's the haves and the have-nots. They're going to really see that they're a have-not. Because it's just, again, this whole thing, again, wealth, power, race. And when it comes to the politics of the thing, yes, you can throw the whole thing in the trash, but at the same time, I'm looking at it as a present day. Who's threatening my life? Who's threatening? If you give this candidate some money, I'm cutting you off.
Right.
If you're trying to antagonize people, like saying, passing laws. If people in Georgia got to stand on the voting line for 7-8 hours, you can't bring them water, or a church group can't get a church bus and take senior citizens to go vote. What is that? Or like it's okay for a group of people to stand in front of other people with, of course, just as they're standing in line to vote, they get to stand afar off with all their automatic weapons and all their gear and say, okay, it's okay to do that. It's okay to tell a group of people to stand down, but stand by in case something pop off. It's you know what I mean? It's okay to say I'm gonna be a dictator for a day. It's like we have to in this upcoming election, like you said, I know all of us watch a different kind of news. And according to my news, things are okay, except for the hate. And however, we have to vote and take the lesser of the two evils. And of course, I'm going to vote for the lesser evil that is going to not kill me, or not that is actually has my best interest in mind. Yeah. But I know a lot of people are going to do the same thing because, again, it is what it is, right?
Right. We're headed. We gotta think this through and say it is bigger than just two people. And I know that there's corruption on both sides. I'm not, like, as you say, it's the evil of two lessers. That's the evil of two lessers. So, and you come down to, neither side is perfect at all. But I don't like, when somebody even says, I right away, when I heard the interview and I heard, Trump get through, no, I'm not going to be a dictator. And then he just changed like an instant and said, except for day one. And then I thought, okay, so not only now has he admitted that for day one, it's going to all gloves off, but who in your mind thinks that after day one, he's going to not go, I didn't get everything done I needed to get done in day one.
Day one is week one.
Right. We're going to have to continue until I get done, So, and then at what point do we start to realize that, okay, so now he's got the camp set up. Now certain people have just disappeared. We're not sure. We think they moved to Liberia, whatever. I mean, it's just, if you are entertaining that as a possibility and being vocal about it. I mean, I'll give Trump credit for one thing. He doesn't hide anything. He has no, you don't have to guess anything. That's why I voted from the first time.
Tell you who they are, believe them, right?
Right. It's just like
when they tell you who they are, believe them.
Right. So it's just like, I am not, I don't have any agenda than for you to know that what my agenda is, and I'm not going to obfuscate it. I'm telling you exactly what it is. Biden, I really don't have any idea. I mean, he talks a good talk, but who knows? It ends up being, maybe he would have people killed on day one. Maybe he is thinking it, but he just isn't saying it. I don't know, honestly.
I think those two men are two totally different men. And, but again, I just feel like, when it comes to the realm of politics, again, I just wish everyone, when I say the education in basic politics, not Democrat, Republican, or right or left, liberal, conservative, but just, again, the functions and duties of the different branches of government. And when we can learn those, we can understand, we simply understand that when a group of people tell us one thing, but we have the common knowledge to know that that's not accurate, we can actually start to get to some better understanding. Because what the Bible says, for as much is up to you, live peaceably with all men. So as much as up to us is up to us to educate ourselves, to gain some bit of knowledge, to understand that, hey, because people are because this is what's happening. I'm going to say this. This is what's happening. And I see it in the spirit realm, and in the spirit realm actually transfers to natural. We know that as Christians, right? And what we see is when people realize that they've been duped or that they've been wrong, rather than acknowledge that they're wrong, they'll double down on the lie. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. They'll double down versus saying, you know what, I was wrong. They won't do that. They'll double down.
Right.
And then basically their truth is based on how they feel. And that's where we are, because a lot of people know that a lot of the stuff that's being floated around because a lot of that stuff is not true. And some of it may be, some of it may not be. But again, if we can learn the basics of government, we can actually, again, for as much as up to us, take the time to get better understanding of each other and our plight, our struggle, or even our perspective. If we can just come together to get a better understanding of that,
right.
That's where humility starts to come in, and then hopefully some understanding can come about. And with that understanding, of course, that knowledge, and then of course, knowledge applied is wisdom, and that's what we need to get to. Because everything that we need to know is right in front of us, but it's just a choice to actually, you know what, I'm going to allow myself to burn a little bit to get, I'm going to have to accept this pain that I've been wrong, or whether I've been wrong or I've wronged somebody, whatever the case may be. It's time for me to feel this burn and get to the other side, so there could be just a better place.
Yeah.
And of course, because a lot of people are living for now. We got to think, me personally, I'm thinking, 40, 50 years down the line. Right. My son, he'll be in his 60s at that point. I'll be, Lord willing, I don't know if I want to be here or not, but it's like, we got to think about the next generation and the generation after that. And again, it's like, even the generation now, again, history being killed is trying to kill history so a different narrative can be set. That way this hate can be continuously perpetuated. Mm-hmm. Versus if a kid say, parents are saying, oh, history hurts my kids' feelings. Some of them it may, but I think majority of the kids, no. They like, I want to know. I want to learn. But the thing is, again, feeling that burn. Grandmama, great-grandmama, great-grandpappy don't want the grandkids to know that they were wrong. They had the wrong heart, the wrong mindset. And that's in whether race you want,
Yeah.
And it's just, and so, but it's like, we're talking about knowledge over narratives, right?
Right.
Because you can't, we can't allow for history to be deleted and then all these different narratives continue to come up. Because again, this is one of my things, and I share it with you. It's like every time I see or hear a book that is of great interest to me, I order it and just put it in the queue to read, because eventually, we're not going to be able to access the information. My wife, she made a great point to me the other day. She was saying how, eventually we can, how we can simply go and look up information right now. We're talking in a very short period of time here. We're going to go look up something and it's not going to be available.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're going to go to look up something and it's not going to be available. And when she told me that, and when she was breaking that down to me, I'm like, oh my Lord, that she is right. So it's like, again, I'm ordering books on history. It's just basically gonna be a part of my legacy. And, but if the more understanding we have, the better off we'll be. And hopefully, our conversations and our babbling get us to help get people to that space, or even get to where we are, where we can agree to disagree, or we can just, again, we can sit and take the burn.
I was looking up, there's a study that was done by a group of psychologists, and I'm trying to find it, back in the 1950s. And they were trying to argue that, or study the idea of last day prophets, and what causes people to follow last day prophets who prophesize, the end of the world is coming on September 16th, 1958. And they get a bunch of people behind them. Oh my God, we got to prepare for that. We got to prepare for September 28th. We got to prepare. And people do. And that day comes and they're all ready. Here it comes, Lord, here it comes. So day passes and nothing happens. Nothing. So, and the pastor, the leader of that says, the Lord revealed to me that he has decided to be patient with us, give us a bit more time to, find and reclaim those that we love, and, to convert them to understand that the end is coming. The new date that he has now given me is, September 19th, 1962. Whatever. I'm picking dates out there. Look at the study because you can see the specific.
Right.
So what convinces people to, okay, all right, good. Well, I'm going to go work on Aunt Mildred and I'm going to do blah, blah, blah. Instead of going, wait a minute, you were wrong this first time. Was I wrong to believe you? No, because there is, as you say, we double down. We don't want to admit that we could be wrong. The Emerson said it beautifully years ago. Ralph Waldo Emerson says, the vehemence of my opponent's argument convinces me that he is perhaps a little bit right, and I am perhaps a little bit wrong. So to be able to do that, to be able to say, and I think of marriage all the time, okay, 37 years of being married to my wife, and I could be, if it were not for her, I would be a complete a-hole, okay? I know that. I would be a complete a-hole because she is so much better a person than I am. She started out a better person. She's got so much grace and humility and willingness to just search out the Word of God and try to live it, that she has held me to a standard that I have bucked so many times in my lifetime, in my marriage with her. And I have hurt her deeply because I fought. I fought for my own pride, for my own self-adoration, for my own sense of unfairness. It's unfair that you're holding me to so what? I lied a little bit. So what? Because you wouldn't treat me so badly whenever I fess up on things, I wouldn't have to lie. I mean, those thoughts, those actions were part of my being. And it wasn't until I got to the point where I started to think, after we would have arguments, and think, dang it, she's right. I am selfish. Dang, she's right. I shouldn't be lying. I got to stop lying. It wasn't until I said, you know what? She's got a point. I don't listen. I don't listen as well as I could. Those moments when I was willing to back down and stop for a moment, just a little bit of time, stop being an asshole. I said it, being an asshole. I stopped it. And I said, there might be a better way here. There is a better way here, and I need to listen to her. Those have been the moments where our marriage had grown. And I'm convinced that those are the reason that we're still together after 37 years, is because as the man, as the stronger vessel, all of that crap. No, it wasn't because of my gender. It was because I was willing to, and she was faithful enough to me to keep pushing. And when I'm sure I know she's had times where it's just like, this just isn't worth it. He just is not, he keeps lying and he keeps lying and he keeps lying. But she's hung on. And thankfully, I don't know if I learned it fast enough, but thankfully the Lord graced me with the ability to say, and the willingness, and I chose to say, there's a better way. And that's what we got to do as people. We are, whether we like it or not, we are married to one another as human beings. And it is not right for any of us, whether it's, the Gaza Strip or the Ukraine or the United States of America and Michigan and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, the battleground states that we talk about in the coming election, whether it's Republican or Democrat, we are all in this together. So I don't know what is going to be gained by continuing this. And if you've got money and you're funding some of this stuff right now, if you're funding the foment that's going on because you see some gain and I don't know what, you better think about beyond that gain, because when it all gets burnt to the ground, what is left? Oh, I guess if you're in building supply, maybe that's a good deal. If you still have a labor force to cut down the lumber that you need to have building supplies, okay, maybe, I don't know, maybe that's the end goal. I don't know. But if they start nuking it, because guess what? China and Russia and Iran are all watching this, and North Korea, they're all watching this and say, wait for it. They're going to fall apart. Yep. They're going to completely destroy one another. And then we'll just go in and take what's left. Or we'll just leave them alone, because they're going to be all bombed to heck, and there won't be anything worth taking anymore. And we'll have them out of the way.
We're even in my point of view, I'm believing that we're even seeing their influence affect what we do and the decisions we make in this country. I believe that some of the people that are in the places of government and places of authority are actually taking word from some of those outside influences. I do believe that, and of course, and that's driving the direction in which some people think, an authoritarian government would help. And it's like, but it won't. And that's the scary part, but going back to what we were talking about, it's like, when we talk about racism in America, Raul, the sad part is majority of Americans kind of refuse to acknowledge it. Just simply put, they refuse to acknowledge it. And then even the group of people that do acknowledge it, they are in a space where they want to decide whether, if we focus on issues of race, would it really make a difference in the policy making of the country? Will it really do anything? And so it's like majority of the people don't believe, refuse to acknowledge it, and then the people that do are kind of like some of the people that do are tiptoeing. And remember how I told you, I was like, hey, it's time to be all in or all out, Mm-hmm. And that's where we have to be with our mindsets. It's like, unfortunately, this is a space where we have to just tell the truth. And I just, the Bible says, the entirety of my word is truth, and my justice and mercies endure forever. That's Psalm 119, 160. And we, as a people, of course, this is the Bible part starting to come out. When we start to learn to live by God's principles and not by personal preference, we will start to really see on earth as it is in heaven, and that's what God intended. That's what he wants. That's his sole desire, for earth to duplicate and replicate heaven on earth as it is in heaven. And us having that heart to live by biblical principle versus personal preference. And when we put down personal preference, we'll put down pride. We'll put down a lot of that human pride, and that is the killer. Again, the inability to admit that we're wrong, the inability to accept change, the inability to love. And
beloved, let us love one another. For everyone that loves knows God and is born of God. The way to is love. What the world
and of course, and of course, February is Valentine's Day, right?
Yeah.
And of course, we as a FaithWorks Ministries, we're going to be doing a series called Love Covers. It's just going to be a month-long series on love. And of course, the scripture says love covers a multitude of sins, right? Love covers, and of course, and that's basically, it starts out as love. God's love covers our sins, but the same love that he loved us with should cover others' sins, and that's where we, again, love covers. And so if we can get to a space of love, humility will start to, the hearts of people will not continue to wax cold. But it's just we're hoping that we can just start to understand each other better. That's what let's start there.
Let's start
the
there.
Strive to get the strive for better understanding. Let's start there.
And after an hour and almost 4 minutes now, I don't know how much forward time we took in getting us there, but I don't know. I got fired up. There's just we gotta work against these forces of polarization and enemy, otherizing one another. We gotta, the alternative, people, please, people listening, tell your friends, tell your family, tell everyone, the world and the road that we're heading down willfully, by choice, willfully. The road that we are all heading down leads to one place and one place only. Whether you have good intentions or not, there's a wonderful old phrase I love, says the road to hell is paved with good intentions. You know, and the reality is that we are heading, there is no other place that this is all heading except hell. So when are we going to get off the road? When are we going to realize that the utopia that we think we're heading to is really hell? Because if we think that all of this hate and all of this otherization and all of this racial crap, verminizing one another, you know, that we're talking about, and it, you know, the maggots versus the libertards. Okay, everyone uses it. Everyone falls victim to that whole thing. Now it's the threat to democracy. You know, the threat to democracy. The threat to democracy. It's like, this is all of it. All of it is designed to keep us on the road to hell. And both parts don't believe that they're getting you to the road to hell. They're believing that they're heading you to making America great again or preserving American democracy. So the ideals that we're all being led to. But at the end of the day, I guess what's going to happen is there's still going to be have and have-nots. It's just the demographics of them might be a little different. Might be, but I don't really count on that too much, because if you're making money, you're making money. And if it's, you know, however sometimes you sacrifice a pawn in chess, you gotta, that's why they're out there at the front, so you can put them in harm's way. Because if that king comes or that queen comes and takes that pawn, well, they got a bishop waiting for him. Right? Mm-hmm. So we are in a game of chess, and the only way to win, get ahead in this game is, because the game is rigged, is don't play the game. Just don't play. I don't play with people that I know are going to whoop the heck out of me in chess. It's no fun. You know, it's just no fun getting beat the hell in chess. I like chess. I think it's a fun game, but I want to play with people that it's kind of an equal field. You know, I might learn from them, but they're not like, oh, that was a stupid move. That was just a stupid move. All right, I'm going to take this. I'm going to take that. I don't like that. That's not a game anymore. that's oppression at that point.
Yeah, exactly. You know? Oh my goodness. So, because in our spiritual battle, we fight against a defeated foe. He already lost, but we allow the tactics and the things to knock us off our faith. And that's where a lot of people are. And so if we can stand firm in faith, things will start to change, but I know we're running out of time, so I don't want to open up that can.
Yeah, I know. I opened it up too. There's cans opening. I swear, we've got like that Just Married thing with all the cans are dragging behind, So, but anyway. Well, brother.
But yeah.
So, I'm Raul Bresh, and you, sir, you fine young man.
Antowan Hallmon Sr.
And together we are a frame of reference coming together. And I pray and hope that you found something interesting here. I actually hope it maybe made you angry. And then just take a step back, breathe a bit, and try to figure out, why did it make you angry? What's going on that you've got anger over that, whatever was said? Just think about it for a second. And we teach a thing in acting all the time. When you're doing improv and you find yourself getting threatened or whatever that's going on, and somebody's coming out with you energy you don't really understand, and it's, whoa, you can't react back, because that'll get you off track. What you can do is, if I say something really wild and just attack, that you do this. Wow. That's really interesting. You seem pretty charged up about that. What's going on? So that pause, that breath is enough to get things to go from our well-designed brain, the amygdala, where, it's fight or fright or flight, fight, flight, fawn, are the three actions that you can have from the amygdala. and that's survival, right? But 3 seconds is
a
about what
smile
it
will
takes
turn
to
away
get
wrath.
from there up to the front of our brain where we can start thinking about it. And you can feel it. You can feel it in yourself, and you can feel it in the other person too, because they're like, what the hell is this guy doing? So, oh, I see. He's playing chess.
Yeah, what it said,
don't get riled up.
Right, a smile will turn away wrath, right?
Right, exactly. Dude, see yourself.
Hey, have a good one, brother.
You too. We'll talk to you next week, and we'll probably get charged up again. Just get your blood pressure medicine ready. All right?